Plainview Planning, we're an independent town planning consultancy and we're based in Cirencester. We work on all kinds of developments, rural and urban, across all different sectors. Small scale developments, so change of use, to applications for over 1,000 homes and everything in between. So yeah, really varied, and yeah, lots of different projects going on. So I thought it'd be worth talking to you all about some small scale projects and some self-build as well, to kind of give you a bit of a flavour of kind of generally the process, and then are some kind of top tips we'd say for planning applications. So it's a big subject, so I'm going to try and condense some key points down into 10 minutes. So do excuse me, I've got some notes so I don't miss anything important. So first off, if you're planning a really small scale project, so say you want dorm windows, or you want roof lights, small scale extension out the back, you may be able to do that under permitted development rights. So one thing I'd recommend is that you look on the government's website, and they've got technical guidance for householders. So you may find you won't need full planning permission for what you're aiming to do. The guidance is quite confusing, so if you get a bit unstuck, just contact your local architect is what I'd say is the first kind of port of call. But yeah, that is a kind of simpler route rather than going through a whole planning application. But for larger projects that need planning permission, I think the best point of call is either an architect or a planning consultant. They can guide you through the whole process. They're really experienced and can help you work out exactly what you need. Some applications will need reports from other consultants, say ecologists, landscape architects, heritage consultants. So depending on your site constraints and exactly what you need to do, you may need other third parties as well. So yeah, an architect or a planning consultant can tell you exactly what you need and who to contact and help manage you that process for you, which can be very useful because it is quite a difficult process to navigate. So I think I'll just go over some key pieces of advice really. So I think the first thing is make sure you get the right team on board and the right team for the project that you're trying to achieve. Look at websites and kind of try and find someone that's got experience with what you're looking to do, and yeah, kind of go from there, I'd say. And also it's really important to get that good team up front. Sometimes, say for example, we get brought in right at the kind of middle of a project where everything's kind of gone a bit downhill, applications in, looking for a refusal, and that can be quite difficult to then kind of turn it back round. So actually getting everyone on board to start with is a really good idea. So again, kind of going with that is front loading your submission. So make sure you include all the reports you need. Sometimes it can be easy to be like, oh, we don't necessarily need that report, we can get away with not submitting it, but actually it can end up delaying the process, costing you more money if you don't front load it, and it can just, yeah, loads of delays. So again, listen to your architect or planning consultant and they'll tell you kind of exactly what you need, and yeah, front load everything if you can. Be aware of time frames. So for minor applications, it should take about 8 weeks once you've submitted your application to be determined, but this is very variable. So if you have to make amendments to your design, resubmit new information or anything like that, they'll obviously delay the process. And also the council at the moment, they're very, very stretched for resources, and there's a lack of planners, and also there's been a massive influx of applications over the last few months. So we are seeing applications taking a lot longer. So bear that in mind when you're planning your projects. Just give it an extra few weeks in your plan really. And kind of the last piece of advice really is to be willing to compromise where necessary. Sometimes you will need to amend your design, and you will need to kind of change things, and it may not be quite what you'd first anticipated, but I think having that ability to negotiate and amend your design is a really important piece of the process, and kind of being aware that actually from the very start to the very end you might have to make some changes, and also letting your consultant know what elements you're willing to compromise on and which elements that you kind of know, I really, really want this, I'm kind of determined on this, but this element I'm happy to kind of reduce reduce in scale, change materials and things like that. So definitely worth bearing in mind. And your client, if your client kind of tells us what exactly they want, then we can work in their best interests as well. So kind of having that bigger picture is really important. So at the end of the application process, so you finally get either a planning permission or you get a refusal. So if you get a planning permission, be very aware that there may be some conditions attached to that planning permission. Read it very carefully. You may have to submit some additional information before you can start building. So check with your architect, read it very carefully, and then hopefully you're good to go. If you get refused planning permission, it's not the end of the road. So you can either resubmit, redesign your scheme, or you can appeal the decision. So again, get in contact with a professional who will be really experienced in what to do in these situations, and they can best advise you on the route to take. So that's kind of a little sum up of the process. So in 5 minutes, I know I haven't covered loads of things, but hopefully that gives you a little bit of a flavour. So I'm going to move on quickly to self-build, which I think hopefully a lot of people are kind of interested in. It's quite an up-and-coming kind of topic. It's been around for a while, but we're seeing a lot more enthusiasm for self-build, and we're seeing the government start to recognise that as well. So each council must keep a register of those people and individuals or groups that are looking for a self-build plot, which I think is really interesting because not everybody knows that. And councils, they must give permission to enough suitable self-build plots within 3 years of those individuals joining the register. What it doesn't do is it doesn't tie up the individual with the plot. So there's some kind of hole in that system there, but you know, there's a start here. So they have to provide those plots, but they don't have to tie them to those individuals. You can just join the self-build register, and we would 100% recommend you to join it if you are looking for a self-build plot, custom build. All the details of all the eligibility criteria on the council's website, so depending what local council you're in, all the criteria will be on there, so that's the first place to look, because the people on the register links to the need. So the more people on the register, the more plots they have to provide. So it's kind of, needs fueled really. Although not linked, it is really helpful. So in order to qualify as a self-build plot, you have to have access to the highway. So that's a guaranteed right of access. So it doesn't need to join the public highway. You just have to have guaranteed right of access, so right of way. It has to be a service plot. So you have to have water, wastewater and electricity provided to the boundary. So you can use alternatives, say cesspits for example, but that's kind of the general criteria. And then kind of the main thing is the final occupier must have input into design. So a common misconception is that you need to physically build the house yourself, and that is not true. So it's all about that input into the design. So I think a lot of people get put off with self-build and the idea because it is a common misconception that you have to then go and start, laying foundations, which is not true. I have a lot of people calling up the office saying, I'm looking to build it myself. So yeah, just thought I'd clarify that. So obviously, the main thing is for looking for a piece of land, for a plot of land. That's kind of probably the most difficult part of the process. And I think the main thing is being aware of the constraints of the land, working out kind of environmental, historic constraints, location, sustainability, other factors like that are really important. But I think getting a professional on board early on, even when you're just looking at sites, can really help you narrow down the constraints really, and work out actually, is this feasible, is it not? So we offer appraisals prior to purchase of land, and we kind of give you an overview, say this is what to bear in mind, these are the things to look out for, and these are the things you kind of want to avoid, and we look at them on a site-by-site basis, so we can provide that service for anyone. It kind of gives you a bit more of peace of mind, especially if you're purchasing a plot of land. And Millar Howard as well, they're super experienced self-build, so again, they're really good people to get in contact with if you're thinking of purchasing a plot of land. So If you're applying for planning permission as an individual for a self-build plot, you can do a thing called permission in principle. You can go for outline consent, or you can do a full application. So one tip we'd say is make sure that your consultant team and the planning application all notes that it's a self-build project, because when determining applications, quite often self-build will be given more weight than just a generic plot of land, well, like just a house builder. So do bear that in mind. That is quite significant in your application. You can apply for self-build as an individual, a group, but you'd need to go through an outline route so you can make sure that everyone can have that individual kind of design touch on their own plot, if you see what I mean. So then you can apply later to get all the detailed designs in. So for an outline application, you can do a design code and say building heights, you can building lines, material palette, character, you can kind of define those elements, and then go back in for each individual plot when you've kind of ready to do so. And I'll kind of just finish off to say that it is a slow process, and it can be difficult to secure a plot of land, and it can be difficult to achieve planning permission. And one thing we would definitely recommend is that you get involved with consultation on planning policies, get in touch with your local councillors and start conversations. If we all start talking about self-build, it kind of gets it out there, and it is a great thing, and it is becoming more and more prevalent. And I think, for example, Stroud new local plan has a lot of policies about self-build, so they're really trying to bring in more possibilities for self-build plots. So it's things like that. Talking to your local council is a really good place to start, and getting involved as much as you can. So don't let the process put you off, because if you do it right with the right team, you can definitely achieve your dream home. So thank you very much for listening. Sorry, it's just a whistle-stop tour, but if you have any questions, then I'll be kind of mingling. Thank you. Thanks.